Hi friends, today I am putting together some freezer meals. Thanks for stopping by. Hello, thanks for stopping by today. In this video I'm sharing with you a week of freezer meals that I put together to help me get through a busy work week. And to start off, I am just putting all of this ground beef into a really large skillet. And you will see me getting this meat put into this big pan and then taking some out because I remembered that I was using some for meatloaf. So there we go. This is the amount we are working with for these freezer meals today. And I am just seasoning with some onions, the dried onions, and some garlic powder and some salt and pepper, and that's it. So next I'm going to use the other ground beef and I'm going to get a meatloaf going while the other meat is cooking on the stove. So I'm adding 1 box of stuffing, 1 packet of onion soup, and 2 eggs. So next I'm putting some beef broth on the stuffing mix to get it moistened. Sometimes I use milk. It's okay. It doesn't matter what you use for your liquid. You just want to kind of get those breadcrumbs moistened and soft and workable. So then I'm just mixing this all together, and that is pretty much all I'm doing for this meatloaf mixture. I am going to add in some shredded cheese and get that in there. I don't normally do this, but on this day I did, and we really did enjoy having this different kind of meatloaf. Technically, my husband only likes meatloaf that has cream of mushroom soup baked on it, but today I thought I'd do something different since this is a different method of making meatloaf for me, just by putting it together and putting it in the freezer. So next I'm going to top it with bacon, which will be the first time that I have made it this way for my husband and my sons. I have done this in the past, but it's been many, many years, and they really like this, so I'm sure they'll request it again. Now this is a huge meatloaf, and we did have a lot of leftovers, which was what I was going for. But I mean, on a typical night I probably would make this about half this size, but since it was a make ahead meal, I just went for it and figured I would have the leftovers and we could use those at another time. Now after I get this all assembled, I'm going to cover it with some aluminum foil, and I know that some people will do a layer of plastic wrap and then the foil or some other method, but these are not going to be in my freezer for very long at all. I'm not worried about this bacon sticking to anything, so I am just putting one layer of foil on this, and I'm just going to write what it is. I know what temperature I want to cook it at. I mean, I see people that put the directions on the foil too, so that they know how to make it, or if somebody else is cooking dinner, they have the directions right on the foil. But I'm the only one that's going to cook this, so I didn't do that. And I just made some instant mashed potatoes, and my meatloaf is on the side, obviously. So I put a little bit of the cream of mushroom soup on the side. I made it in a little pan and just put it on top of our meatloaf afterwards. And we had some peas with this, and it was a big hit with the guys. The next freezer meal that I'm going to put together is a cheesy sausage hash brown casserole. So I'm basically just dumping my frozen shredded hash browns into this tin foil baking pan, and then I added some dried onions, some garlic powder, and some salt and pepper, some cream of mushroom soup. And then also I'm going to put in a can of Rico's nacho cheese, which I know you wouldn't think goes together, but it actually is really good. And it's just going to give it that sauciness and the cheesy flavor without being overpowering overpoweringly nacho cheesy, if that makes any sense. So all I'm going to do is add the cheese and the soup, get that all in there. Then I'm going to start cutting up the sausage, and I had so much going on this day making all these freezer meals that I literally just grabbed my paring knife that was sitting nearby and just started chunking up these smoked sausages and into smaller pieces and just doing it right into the pan. Anyway, so once I get all of these cut up into pieces and get it into the pan, then I'll work on getting it all mixed together. I just want to say that getting these freezer meals put together on a Sunday, it took me about 2.5 hours to assemble 5 pans of freezer meals for the week, and my husband really enjoyed all of the foods that we had that week, and he asked if we could eat like this all the time, which we could, but it was cooled down when I made these, and it was fine to use the oven, but it's hot again, so there's no way I'll be doing that until it gets cool and stays cool. The weather anyway, that's what I'm talking about. So right here I am just adding a bag of frozen broccoli, and so this now has just become a one dish wonder. So I've got my veggies, my meat, and my potatoes all in one pan here, so I really like that part. It made it super easy for me. And once again, I'm going to top it with cheese, because you can never have enough cheese, in my opinion. And I'm just going to cover it with foil, write the name of the meal on top of the foil, and then put that in the freezer also. And it's good to go. And here's what it looked like coming out of the oven, and what it looked like in my bowl. It was really good. And like I said, it was a one dish, one pan meal, whatever you call it, and we really like this one. Next, I'm making a kind of use what you got kind of freezer meal here. I am pouring in some taco sauce, not enchilada sauce, because I didn't have that on that day. So I'm also using some corn tortillas, and so my goal is to just get a layer of liquid on the bottom and then put my tortillas in next. I do want to say that I would have preferred this one made with flour tortillas, because the corn tortillas basically turn into like a mush, and it tasted fine. It was really good, but the texture of it was more like tamale filling, which, you know, if that's what you're going for, that's good, but I would have preferred the flour tortillas. So if I do this again, that's what I would do. This was still tasty, and we enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I had in mind when I was putting it together. That's all. I am using a can of diced green tomatoes with green chilies, and also a can of hot salsa. And then I had some sliced pepper jack cheese, so I'm just putting those slices in. I do this quite a bit, using sliced cheese instead of like shredded cheeses, because they kind of melt differently than the shreds. And so this is kind of what I'll use in my lasagna and that kind of stuff, in the middle layers. And I'm just going back over top of the cheese with that taco sauce to give the sauce something to lay on top of and not just seep into the meat and fall to the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to put my tortillas back on top of that cheese and sauce layer. And then I'll go back in with another layer of the meat and the sauces until I have my pan just filled up, and then top it all off with cheese. So this was pretty easy to put together. The only thing that I didn't necessarily care for as much was the choice of tortillas, but the next time I make it, I will keep that in mind. For all of these freezer meals, I took them out of the freezer the night before and put them into the refrigerator while I was at work to thaw on their own. And since they're already cooked ahead of time, I just put them all except for the meatloaf in the oven for about an hour on 375, and they all seemed to work out fine with every one of them except for the meatloaf, which took longer to cook because it was so huge and it was not cooked beforehand. Voila! So here's my bowl and here's the pan when it came out of the oven and what it looked like and everything. So we were just really lacking on toppings for taco type stuff in our house at this time. So I just used what I had, which was some sour cream and some Taco Bell mild sauce. I would have loved to have some black olives or some salsa or even some lettuce to put on this, but I didn't have any, so we were just making do with what we had in the house at the time. So the next dinner that I'm getting ready for the freezer is also a Mexican dish because, you know, I had all the stuff out and from the previous one, so we were just gonna trek on along and get this one done. So I put some taco seasoning into the ground beef that I cooked up, and then added some diced tomatoes with green chilies and a little bit of beef broth just to give that seasoning something to work with when it does go into the oven on the day that I decide to cook it. I'm adding a can of chili beans with the sauce. And then just mixing all that in together. Next I'm going to add some extra sharp extra sharp shredded cheddar cheese. There, I got it. So I'm gonna mix all that together. And this one is really easy to put together, and even if you're not making it for the freezer, but it just so happened that that's what I was doing. So anyway, I'm going to top it all off with some tater tots. And this is a Mexican-inspired tater tot casserole. So I'm just going to spread these all around. I will not be lining my tater tots up. That's just not something that I do. I'm usually going for the quickest method possible. So I have scattered tater tot casserole here. And the last thing I did for this was just put a little more cheese on top of the tater tots. And that is all. And so the last thing is getting it all foiled up and labeled for the freezer, and then it's ready to go too. And here is my bowl. I just had some sliced tomatoes from the garden on the side. I really did like this one a lot. And of course I had to have my Red Hot. And this freezer meal was inspired just because I had this one pack of cube steak in my freezer. These are the beef cube steaks, so I just had put one more pack on my grocery list that week, and I just decided these were gonna go in. This is a quick meal that I can usually make on the stovetop, but decided it would be good in a pre-made freezer type meal. So I added 2 cans of sliced potatoes, and I'm missing video footage somewhere of me adding the rest of the ingredients, which were a gravy packet, a beefy onion soup packet, and some garlic, some salt and pepper, and I put in a can of cream of mushroom soup as well, and a can of cream of celery soup. And then I just sliced up some onions, and I'm going to lay those right on top. I don't always mix everything together. Sometimes when I cook, I will put all the ingredients together, and then after they kind of cook a little while, then I'll go back in and give it a stir, and then put it back in the oven or whatever, crock pot, whatever I'm cooking with. So that's just one of my little quirks, cooking quirks, I guess you could say. So after I get this all just thrown into this pan, then I just put the foil on and labeled what the meal is, and then it went in the freezer with the rest of them. This was really, really easy and quick. Unfortunately, on the night that we made this for dinner, I was not feeling well, so I can't tell you if I liked it or not, but my husband really loved it and said that it tasted really good. I was able to grab him for a split second as he was getting ready to eat and asked him to let me film his bowl. He had it all in one bowl that night, all kind of chopped up, the meat and the potatoes and the onions and whatnot, and he really liked this. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you got some inspiration to maybe try some freezer meals in the future. I know that I will revisit this process again in the future to make my life easier and save myself some sanity on those busy work nights in my kitchen when I'm trying to get dinner ready in a hurry. Please consider hitting the subscribe button. Bye for now.